Hi, everybody. It's me and Maya. I'm back and I'm in Genesis, and I'm going to start from chapter 50 today. And I'm reading from the Amplified because it fleshes out the meaning of the word a whole lot better. Hold on a second. Hi, sorry about that. I'm back. Okay, so I'm in chapter 50 of Genesis, burial and preparations and mourning for Jacob. Okay, I'm back. Okay, burial preparations and mourning for Jacob. Then Joseph fell upon his father's face, and wept over him, and kissed him tenderly. Then Joseph ordered his servants, the physicians, to embalm or mummify his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel or Jacob. Now 40 days were required for this, for that is the customary number of days of preparation required for embalming. And the Egyptians wept and grieved for him in public mourning as they would for royalty for 70 days. That's so interesting. Um, because numbers have significance in the Bible, and so you think about what is it? I think was Jesus in the I think Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days. It rained for 40 days and for 40 nights, and then you think about so I don't know if there's any correlation there, but it's interesting. Okay, then it goes on. When the days of weeping and public mourning for him were past, Joseph spoke to the nobles of the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found favor in your sight, please speak to Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear an oath, saying, Hear me, I am about to die. Which bury me in my tomb which I prepared for myself in the land of Canaan. Now let me go up to Canaan, please, and bury my father. Then I will return. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear. So Joseph went up to Canaan to bury his father, and with him went all the officials of Pharaoh, the nobles of his court, and the elders of his household, and all the nobles and the elders of the land of Egypt, and all the household of Joseph and his brothers and his father's household. They left only their little ones and their flocks and their herds in the land of Goshen. Both chariots and horsemen also went up to Canaan with Joseph, and it was a very great company. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they mourned there with a great lamentation, expressions of mourning for the deceased, and extreme demonstrations of sorrow according to Egyptian custom. And Joseph observed a 7-day mourning for his father. When the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning for the Egyptians. Therefore the place was named Abel Mizraim, or mourning of Egypt. Interesting. It is west of the Jordan. Okay, burial at Machpelah. So Jacob's sons did for him as he had commanded them. For his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the fields of Machpelah, east of Mamre, which Abraham bought along with the field as a burial site from Ephron the Hittite. After he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers and all who had gone with him. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, What if Joseph carries a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the wrong which we did to him? I can understand them being that's a real concern. I don't blame them. Um, so they sent word to Joseph saying, Your father commanded us before he died, saying, You are to say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did you wrong. Now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers went and fell down before him in confession. Then they said, Behold, we are your servants or slaves. But Joseph said to them, Do not be afraid, for I am not in the place of God. Vengeance is his, not mine. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good in order to bring about this present outcome, that many people would be kept alive as they are this day. So now do not be afraid. I will provide for you and support you and your little ones. So he comforted them, giving them encouragement and hope, and spoke with kind hearts. Okay, death of Joseph. Now Joseph lived in Egypt, and he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw the third generation of Ephraim's children, also the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were born and raised on Joseph's knees. Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely take care of you and bring you up out of this land to the land which he promised to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob to give you. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel, or Jacob, swear an oath, God will surely visit you and take care of you, returning you to Canaan. And when that happens, you shall carry my bones up from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. Wow, Joseph lived an amazing life. But it's interesting, he only lived 110 years, and his older brothers actually outlived him. It's, interesting. But he did a lot of living in those 110 years, so, right? Okay, so I'm down here at the footnotes. Um, okay. Okay, Joseph's body remained in Egypt until the exodus to the promised land of Canaan, about 200 years later. Its final resting place was Shechem, near Samaria, in the parcel of ground which Jacob bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem. Um, Here, each of his brothers was also buried. Okay. Oh wow, we are finally out of Genesis. Wow, so Genesis was 50 good chapters. We are finally into Exodus. Okay, and that's pretty uh, exciting story. Okay, in Israel multiplies in Egypt. Now these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob. Each came with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. All the descendants of Jacob were 70 people. Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers and all that generation. But the Israelites were prolific and increased greatly. They multiplied and became extremely strong, so the land was filled with them. Now a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph, nor the history of his accomplishments. Okay, he said to his people, Behold, the people of the sons of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. They greatly outnumber us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, so that they will not multiply, and in the event of war, join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land. So they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with hard labor. And the sons of Israel built Pithom and was it Ramses as strong cities for Pharaoh. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more they multiplied and expanded, so that the Egyptians dreaded and were exasperated by the Israelites. And the Egyptians made the Israelites serve rigorously, forcing them into severe slavery. They made their lives bitter with hard labor in mortar, brick, and all kinds of field work. All their labor was harsh and severe. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah, or beauty, and the other named Puah, or splendor, when you act as midwives to the Hebrew woman and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, she shall live. But the midwives feared God with profound reverence, and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded, but they let the boy babies live. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, Why have you done this thing and allowed the boy babies to live? The midwives answered Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth quickly, and their babies are born before the midwife can get to them. So God was good to the midwives, and the people of Israel multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives feared God with profound reverence, he established families and households for them. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, every son who was born to the Hebrews must be thrown into the Nile, but every daughter you shall keep alive. Wow. Yeah. Wow. You see, as now, I'm just going to say, as an African American, I see the parallels there, between the Hebrews in Egypt and what they're going through, and Black people, of what we've been through in America, and just when they talk about how like they were beginning to outnumber the Egyptians. Well, in the South, and actually, slavery existed throughout all of America at one point, but certainly in the South. And there were oftentimes, we began to maybe outnumber them. And so, then you had the Ku Klux Klan, which came around to kind of just, keep us in our place. And so they would terrorize us in order to keep us in our place, and they talk about, kill the boy babies and let the girls live. And often you do see that in our community, where the boys are definitely under more attack and males are definitely under more attack than females. But today you begin to see, even females starting to take a bigger brunt of the violence. So just seeing the parallels there, as a Black person in America, you know yeah. But anyhow, let's see. Now, where was I? Okay, so I'm down in the footnotes. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. It says the political attitude toward the Israelites living in Egypt changed from friendly and welcoming to suspicious and hostile, and Israel's struggle for existence led to one of the most dramatic and memorable interventions that God would make in human history. Okay. And also, I may not look like it, but like many African Americans, I have some American Indian blood in me too, and Scottish. And I don't know what else because I didn't do ancestry DNA. But for American Indians, I see the parallel in, the white settlers came here, the pilgrims came here, and they would have died if not for these American Indians. And the same thing is kind of true with the Israelites, the Hebrews. There's all these people would have died if this Hebrew Joseph, didn't show up on the scene. They would have all, who knew God, they would have all died. And so the American Indians saved their lives and taught them how to find food and to stay warm, and whatever else they taught them. And it was great and fine and dandy. But I'm sure once that whole generation died and now it was their kids, it's like, wow, they just forgot, and that's part of how haters do too. Haters will somehow conveniently forget all the good you ever did toward them, all the kindness you ever showed. They forget about all that. But you know, whew, right? But thank God, that we have God, um, to keep us in the, what is it? The Bible says, it says, Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He prepareth the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. And I was listening to a preacher talk about that one day, and they were saying something like, God doesn't necessarily get rid of your enemies. And I think sometimes God does do that. Matter of fact, I know he does it too. But it says oftentimes God will just prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. God doesn't necessarily wipe your enemies out. He punishes them by making them, or he punishes them or teaches them a lesson by making them watch you be blessed. And matter of fact, I think I know who the preacher was. I think it was Darius Daniels. I listened to him a lot on YouTube. I think he's so awesome, awesome, awesome. So if you ever want to check out Darius Daniels, he's really good. Okay, where was I? Okay, it says here the Pharaoh at this time. It says the identity of this Pharaoh is uncertain. Some scholars think he was Ahmose the first, who lived from 1570 to 1546 BC, founder of the 18th dynasty of Egypt's New Kingdom, or Ahmose's successor, Amenhotep the first, 50, who lived from 1546 to 1525. I don't know if they lived this long or this was the length of their reign. I don't know. But anyway, it says 1546 to 1525 BC. Others believe that this pharaoh was one of the first of the Hyksos rulers. The Hyksos were foreign invaders. Okay, interesting. Now I'd heard that about Egypt. At first, it was the black people native to Egypt, of course, that ruled Egypt. But at some point in time, it was no longer those black people who were native, but it was foreigners. So by the time you got to what's her name? Oh, the queen, the famous queen, who was the great seductress. It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, yeah, she actually was, I believe she was not black, or she was at least was not native. She was, part of the foreign invaders who eventually took over the Egypt's rule. Um, so Cleopatra, yes, 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 yes. So anyway, I'd like to study her in detail more, one day, who knows. Um, okay, so then it says, this is the blah, blah, blah. Okay, anyway, okay, so it says, the last footnote says, if the early date of the Exodus, 1446 BC, is acknowledged, as most conservative scholars hold, then this pharaoh is likely uh, Tutmos or Thutmose the first. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. 1525 to 1512 BC. Okay. Exodus 2, the birth of Moses. Now a man of the house of Levi, the priestly tribe, went and took as his wife a daughter of Levi. The woman conceived and gave birth to a son, and when she saw that he was especially beautiful and healthy, she hid him for 3 months to protect him from the Egyptians. When she could no longer hide him, and she got him a basket or chest made of papyrus reeds, and covered it with tar and pitch, making it waterproof. Then she put the child in it and set it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile, and his sister Miriam stood some distance away to find out what happened to him. Wow, I mean, for all of you out there, especially you mothers, I mean, I can't imagine how that feels. Don't want to imagine, really, how that, to be able to do that, to be, you have this blessed with this beautiful, beautiful gift from God, this beautiful, innocent, wonderful child. And you have to make up in your mind, I'm going to put him in this waterproof basket and just put him on the Nile with all those crocodiles, and just pray for the best, you know. I guess it's kind of like, I guess it's almost kind of like you hear these stories of, illegal aliens, coming from South and Central America. And you hear stories of how they just kind of send their children off by themselves. And what I've heard is something like at some point in time, it's a choice of either all of them dying or giving this child a chance at life and sending them by themselves. um, what a decision they have to make. What a decision. And I was talking to my mother the other day, because I saw this factoid about slavery in America. And they were saying that what would happen many times is, the white slave masters would come in and, have sex with all the female slaves they wanted to. And of course, they produce mixed breed children, obviously, right? Look at me, right? Do I look all African to you? So anyway, right? They would do this, and so their wives, the white wives, oftentimes would brutally beat these babies to death. I mean, I'm talking about That's racism is a disease, it's a sickness. You know, I mean, talk about being a complete sociopath to be able to do something like that to an innocent child, even though you hate how that child came to be. But that is not the fault of the mother or the child. That's the fault of your trifling husband. Ugh. you know, Not the child. And to be able to do that to an innocent baby. And it was such a popular thing, such a common thing back then that they actually made laws to protect these women after they did this horrible thing. Um, yeah, just America doesn't quite seem ready to address all its sins. I mean, I see people making strides, praise God. I see people making strides, but yeah, America's not quite really ready to do their sins. And you know how I know this? Because the minute black people start talking about racism, 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 other folks cannot wait for them to shut up because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for somebody to bring that up, but it's the truth. And the truth will set you free, you know. And nobody's saying that that person did it themselves, but they're saying, look, this is the culture that we are in, and this is the culture that because you look a certain way, you benefit from, and because I look a certain way, I am discriminated against. And in some ways it was better back then because at least you saw it coming, but now it's so subtle, you know. Um, but if that's who you are, you know who you are. Talk to God, you know. Um, let's see. Um, so anyway, just that it brought all that. You can't help as an African American or a black person. I don't usually say African American. It's a mouthful. I like black. I'm comfortable with that. Because yeah. But I'm comfortable. But anyway, but as a black person in America, you cannot help but see the parallels in this story. And maybe as an American Indian, you may see some parallels there because I just did. Anyhow, where was I? Okay, now the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the Nile, and she, together with her maidens, walked along the river bank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to get it, and she brought it to her. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby was crying. And she took pity on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call a wet nurse from the Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you? And the Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go ahead. So the girl went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed him, and the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she named him Moses, and said, because I drew him out of the water. Oh, hallelujah. To have to do something like that, and then you get put on the payroll to nurse your own baby. What? And now your child's going to be raised in royalty. Like, are you kidding me? Like, whew. Like, yes. Okay. Now one day after Moses had grown into adulthood, it happened that he went to his countrymen and looked with compassion at their labors, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his countrymen. He turned to look around, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. He went out the next day and saw two Hebrew men fighting with each other, and he said to the aggressor, why are you striking your friend? But the man said, who made you a prince and judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Then Moses was afraid and said, certainly this incident is known. Moses escapes to Midian. When Pharaoh heard about this matter, he tried to kill Moses. Then Moses fled from Pharaoh's presence and took refuge in the land of Midian, where he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had seven daughters, and they came and drew water from the well where Moses was resting, and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Then shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to Rule or Jethro, their father, he said, "How is it that you have come back so soon today?" They said, "An Egyptian saved us from the shepherds. He even drew water from the well for us and watered the flock." Then he said to his daughters, "Where is he? Why have you left the man behind? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses was willing to remain with the man, and he gave Moses' daughter Zipporah to be his wife. She gave birth to a son and named him Gershom, or stranger, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. Okay, I'm just going back. Okay, wow. Whoo, Moses, whoo. Moses was a real man. Whoo. ah, okay, so she's saying, I mean, this man, I mean, I'm talking about, I mean, ladies, come on. How chivalrous is this? I mean, not only does the guy, come in like water all their flocks for them, but he jumps in like Superman, and he drives off these cowardly men, who are bullying them. And it's not just one man, it's men. I mean, just Moses just had that spirit of like superhero. Woo! Mm, mm. Okay. Whew. Yes, 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 yes. Mm. I tell you, I tell you. That's why I love westerns. I love now. I don't know. They say that men today are not as masculine or strong as they used to be. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if it's all the plastic in the water, all the birth control in the water, all the hormones in the food. I don't know. Maybe that's true or not. But I love to watch old movies, and I love to watch westerns, and movies about times way back when men used to actually fight with swords. They had to hand to hand combat. I mean, that's a different person. That's a different person that you have to do that, where you are someone who knows what it is to put your life on the line, who knows what it is to fight for God and country and family, you know, who is not afraid to get hit. Man, that's attractive. Man. And it seems like it's fewer of that today. It seems like it is, you know, and I don't, and maybe it's just the lack of fathers, not just in the Black community, which it's the worst there, but not just in the Black community, but the other communities too. Just like there's less and less fathers in the home, showing boys, modeling for boys what it does a man even look like. Um, So yeah, it's a horrible, evil thing, and may God help us and bless us to change all that. You know, um, and even like, and that may have something to do why today, like, what is a man? They talk about who's it, Erickson, who talks about the stages of development as you're growing, the stages you go through psychologically, and when you're a teenager, you're like just trying to find who you are. You're trying on different looks. You're trying on different ways of being. You're like, oh, I'm goth, or I'm preppy, or whatever it is. You're trying on different stuff, and you're trying to figure out, well, what now today? Well, what is a man? It's not as defined as it used to be. The roles are not as defined as it used to be, and people are just trying to figure it out as they go along. And um, and maybe in some ways that's good, and maybe in some ways it's not so good. That in ways it makes things harder. You know, and the same thing for women. For girls. Trying to figure out, well, what does it mean to be a woman? Am I supposed to be feminine, or am I supposed to be tough? Can I go and sleep with all the people I want, or maybe I should have a little bit of respect about myself? It's confusing. you know so yeah, interesting stuff. Now, where was I? But I know what I find attractive. Whew, I know what I like, and I like a man. I do. mm. Okay, Now let's see. Now where was I? Where was I? I went off on my tangent. Okay. Okay, here we go. Now it happens after a long time, about 40 years, that the king of Egypt died. And the children of Israel or Jacob groaned and sighed because of the bondage, and they cried out. And their cry for help because of their bondage ascended to God. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God saw the sons of Israel, and God took notice of them and was concerned about them, knowing all, understanding all, remembering all. Okay, so I'm down in the footnotes. It says that, okay, Amram, okay, so it says Amram and Jochebed are the parents of Aaron and Moses. So I'm assuming that Amram is the father, and I believe Jochebed is the mother. Okay. Okay, so this is interesting. Now it's saying here, going with the most conservative views of scholars, it says that if at this time, if Pharaoh is Tutmos or Thutmose the first, then this is likely his daughter Hatshepsut. Wow. Okay. Um, it says here the name Moses is a wonderful choice. It means drawing out in Hebrew, but in Egyptian, a similar word means man of royalty. This okay, let's see. Okay, blah blah blah. Okay, it says okay, so this says here after Sarah died, Abraham took Keturah, his concubine, as a secondary wife. Midian was the fourth of six sons born to Keturah. Abraham gave gifts to Isaac's half brothers and sent them eastward so that they would have no claim on Isaac's position as Abraham's only heir and the son of promise. Okay, so that's who knows Moses winds up marrying, is one of the daughters of Midian, who was the son of Keturah, the wife after Sarah died. Okay. Um, okay. Let's see. It says here the description of God in this passage attributes human qualities to God, including human emotions and ways of thinking or decision making. It is meant to relate to a human point of view without concern for a strict theological accounting of God's nature. In reality, God is present everywhere and is always aware of everything that happened and will happen. So yeah, the Bible is so interesting like that. Because like God knows everything. Right? Remember I was saying that the other day, God knows everything, but then he had to come down to Sodom and Gomorrah to see if what he heard was true. Right? Interesting. Okay. Exodus 3, the burning bush. Okay, how long have I been reading? Ooh, 38 minutes. Okay, I'm going to probably stop at this chapter or maybe the next one. I'm going to stop. Okay. The burning bush. Now, Moses was keeping the flock of Jethro, or Reuel, his father in law, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, or Sinai, the mountain of God. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing flame of fire from the midst of a bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush was on fire, yet it was not consumed. So Moses said, I must turn away from the flock and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned away from the flock to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then God said, Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, out of respect, because the place on which you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have in fact seen the affliction or suffering and desolation of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters or oppressors. For I know their pain and suffering, so I have come down to rescue them from the hand or power of the Egyptians, to bring them up from that land to a land that is good and spacious, to a land flowing with milk and honey, or a land of plenty, to the place of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Now behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen how the Egyptians oppressed them. The mission of Moses. Therefore, come now, and I will send you to Pharaoh, and then bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? And God says, certainly I will be with you. And this shall be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve and worship God at this mountain. Then Moses said to God, behold, when I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers or ancestors has sent me to you, they they and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. God and he said, you shall say this to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. Then God also said to Moses, this is what you shall say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, or Israel, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial name to all generations. Go gather the elders or tribal leaders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I am indeed concerned about you and what has been done to you in Egypt. So I said, I will bring you up out of the suffering and oppression of Egypt to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. The elders of the tribes will listen and pay attention to what you say, and you, with the elders of Israel, shall go to the king of Egypt, and you shall say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. So now, please, we ask and plead with you, let us go on a 3 days journey into the wilderness so that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless he is forced by a strong hand. So I will reach out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, which I shall do in the midst of it. And after that, he will let you go. And I will grant this people favor and respect in the sight of the Egyptians. Therefore, it shall be that when you go, you will not go empty-handed. But every woman shall insistently ask her neighbor and um, any woman who lives in her house for articles of silver and articles of gold and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and daughters. In this way you are to plunder the Egyptians, leaving bondage with great possessions that are rightfully yours. Okay. Okay, let's see. I'm down in the footnotes. Hmm. It says, okay, angel of the Lord has been capitalized here to reflect the likelihood that it is God appearing in a visible form. Okay, yeah, because it said that Moses wanted to cover his eyes. He didn't want to see God. Okay. Okay, this is kind of interesting. It says here, when they talk about the land of milk and honey, this phrase referred to the abundant fertility of the land of Canaan. Milk, typically that of goats and sheep, was associated with abundance. Honey referred mainly to syrups made from dates of grapes and was the epitome of sweetness. Bees' honey was very rare and was considered the choicest of foods. Okay, okay. Now let me go back up to Exodus 3:14. Exodus 3:14. 3:14. Blah blah blah. Where am I? Where are you? 14. Okay, okay. It says here, God said to Moses, "I am who I am," and He said, "You shall say this to the Israelites: I am has sent me to you." Let me go back down to the footnotes. Okay. So it says here about that statement there, related to the name of God, Yahweh, rendered Lord, which is derived from the verb Haya, to be. Okay. Um, okay, then it goes on to 3:15. Let me go back 3:15. Then God also said to Moses, "This is what you shall say to the Israelites: The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob or Israel, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial name to all generations." Go back down. To know the names of God is to, and back down in the footnotes, to know the names of God is to understand his many attributes and grasp the godly characteristic which the name denotes. Okay. Okay. So that's interesting. So back up there and in the end, let me go back. Okay. When God says to Moses, in this way you are to plunder the Egyptians, leaving bondage with great possession that are rightfully yours. Okay. And it says down here in the footnotes, this indicates that the Egyptians had occupied the Israelites' homes and confiscated their possessions as part of Pharaoh's policy of enslavement. Later, after suffering all the plagues, the Egyptians would be more than willing to give the Israelites whatever they asked in order to be rid of them. Okay, let me move on. Let me see what's happening in Exodus 4. Okay, so this this part is still going on in Exodus 4, but I'm gonna stop here because it's been 41 minutes. And but so I just read from chapter 50 of Genesis to Exodus 3. And so that was a lot of fun. That was interesting. At least I thought it was. And God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. If you're out there, if you're watching this, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. I ask you to please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share it, all that good stuff. Um, and I thank you, and God bless you. And I love you for just watching this stuff. And I'll see you. Well, I won't see you. But anyway, we'll pick up tomorrow. God bless you.